Good afternoon from Bocas del Toro, Panama. Today I am videotaping from another portion of my property. So this makes 3 you've seen so far. We saw some of the top part of the property when we did the Panamanian telenovela video. Last week when I did the 3-month update, I did that from the dock inside of our mangrove ecosystem. And today I come to you from at the end of our dock, or almost the end of it. And we're sitting out over the Caribbean Sea right now. And if you look at the background, you can see Isla Pastore behind me. Okay, so today is the beginning of the long-awaited real estate series that I've been promising like since day one practically. So we're going to start talking a lot in the next few videos, and I really have no idea how many because again, I don't script this stuff out. I don't even outline it out. I'm just talking to you about my experiences. So we're going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to have lots of tips. I'm going to have lots of tricks. I'm going to have some advice. I'm going to show you some things that I can pretty much 99.99% guarantee you had no idea you could do when it came to dealing with real estate in Central America, especially since there's no MLS, which can give you comps or how long something's been on the market. I got tricks for all that stuff. So make sure you subscribe. And if it's not in this video, which I doubt it will be, it'll definitely be in one of the upcoming ones. Okay, so now that you know where I am, let's talk about how I got here. So if you have been paying attention to any of the previous videos that I've put up, you know that our original choice was between Panama, Belize, and Costa Rica. So why did we even choose those 3 countries to start with? Well, the main reason was that I wanted a property that had jungle and ocean. That was like the bottom line criteria for me. I wanted oceanfront and I wanted some jungle because my degree is in marine biology and I have a super passion for jungle biology. And I knew that that was kind of the next direction that my online school was heading in, was expanding to a location where I could bring my homeschool families for workshops and things like that. And again, we're going to get into all of that, the business purposes for this property in an upcoming video. But just know for now that I needed Caribbean oceanfront and jungle. Those were kind of my priorities. So it really did leave me with only Belize, Costa Rica, and Panama as the countries that I wanted to move to. There are a couple countries in between there, right? We've got Mexico, we've got Guatemala, we've got some Honduras in there, but and Nicaragua, of course. But none of those countries fit my other main criteria, which again I talk about all in that should I move to Panama, Costa Rica, or Belize video, those things. So none of those fit. So we had it narrowed down. Now, Belize kind of got knocked off that list fairly early for a few reasons, and one was that I just didn't really like the areas where the and let me say, when I'm talking oceanfront, I'm talking Caribbean oceanfront. Again, I've said in some other videos that I've spent time on the Pacific side of both Costa Rica and Panama, and I don't really care for the vibe there. It's just not my vibe. It works great for plenty of people, but it's just not my style. And Caribbean is where I always I felt at home. I felt at peace. Whether I was on the Caribbean side of Belize or Costa Rica or Panama, when I got there, I was like, this is it. So it didn't matter which borders were surrounding me. It was that vibe of the Caribbean that really drew me in. And so, of course, then I had to narrow it down based on what those countries offered and how those fit my criteria. All right, so the real estate journey ended in Belize fairly quickly. I'll just say that. And then Costa Rica really got our attention. We had gone to Costa Rica a couple of years ago, I think over spring break or Christmas, I can't remember. And we had planned, because I had already spent a lot of time on the Pacific side, I wanted to see the Caribbean side, and we had wanted to see the Caribbean side because we had come to the Caribbean side of Panama first, like 5 years ago, and really fallen in love with this place and kept saying we need to go to the Caribbean side of Costa Rica and see how we like that. So we finally decided to make that trip, and the plan was to spend time on the Caribbean side of Costa Rica, and then to go up and just kind of check out the touristy area of like Arenal and that kind of area. So we were going to split it up into a couple of weeks. So we get to the Puerto Viejo area. We immediately fall in love with Punta Uva and that area, and we fall in love so hard that we canceled the rest of our Costa Rica vacation, and we stayed on that Caribbean side. That's how just at home we felt there. And we started looking for real estate, and we found a property, and it was not oceanfront, because the real estate in Costa Rica on the Caribbean side was a lot more expensive than I kind of could afford. But this lot was about, maybe a mile from Punta Uva Beach, up this area called Paraiso Road. And so we looked at it, we walked it, we liked it, it was within our budget, and we decided that we were going to try to buy it. My main reservation about it was how steep it was, like the terrain. It was really, really a steep lot, and I was concerned about building. Plus, although there was electricity there, there was not internet there, and I could not find a good option for internet. And in the end, we ended up literally in the real estate agent's office with pen in hand, ready to sign the contract, and I said, nope, can't do it. And we walked out, which I'm sure the real estate agent was thrilled with us. But I just felt like I needed more time and more research. So came back home and really started getting heavy into Costa Rica research for the real estate in that area, and found a ton of properties, both on real estate sites and from owners directly. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you can find a property through an owner, I would do that. Here's why. And it's the same situation for both Costa Rica and Panama. In the United States, the real estate agent handles your entire transaction. So they show you the property and they write the contracts and they get you all set up with title so you can get a title search. And if you need a mortgage, then they get you kind of set up there, and they handle all the paperwork end of it pretty much. Okay? Here, that's really not the role of a real estate agent. Here, a real estate agent is going to have some listings and then show you some properties and give you some information. But when it comes time to write a contract, you have to hire an attorney. So you're going to have an extra added expense in there. Know that to get started with. But if you can find like an owner direct, it's fine. You just have to have the attorney, right? And if you find a property that's listed by a real estate agent, it's the same thing. You have to have the attorney. So either way you do it, you're looking at the same thing. But if you can find it listed with the owner, then you're probably going to get it cheaper than what you're going to get it through the real estate agent for. And that brings me to the next portion of our little story time today, which is when I research. I mean, deep dive. I go into every nook and cranny of the internet and pull out every possibility. I don't just go to some real estate site. I'm everywhere. And so I was finding a lot of properties that were listed by owners, but they were also listed by real estate agents on real estate agent sites. And look, this makes complete and total sense. The owner's price was always cheaper than the agent's price. Why? Because the commission structure here is not quite the same as what we're used to in the United States. In the United States, pretty much you're paying a flat 6% fee on your sales price, and 3% of that is going to the listing agent and 3% to the buyer's agent. Here, it's a little different. The real estate agent can kind of make their own commission. So let's say the real estate agent goes to the owner and says, hey, how much do you want for this property? And the owner says, well, I want $100,000 for it. The real estate agent can go list it on their website for like $150 or $200 and walk away with all of that commission. Okay, so that's where if you can find the owners, you're going to be a little better off price-wise than if you go through an agent most often. The problem is finding these owners. Now, when we were in Costa Rica, we drove up and down every single dirt road in the Caribbean of Costa Rica in the Puerto Viejo area. Every single one of them. We always rent a 4x4. And we took pictures of every single like se vende sign that we saw, which means for sale, right? And called all of those numbers and talked to all of those people to find out what it was that they had available. Then got back home, started working with a Costa Rican real estate agent who was actually not in the Caribbean area, but had a lot of contacts down there. So again, in the United States, you're kind of contracted and beholden to your listing agent. So if you list your home, or if you decide you're going to buy a home, a lot of times you work with that agent through the whole entire process. Why is that? Because it's in the US, it's pretty much a level playing field. Okay, if you have a house that is listed for $100,000, it's $100,000 no matter which real estate agent you go through. So there's no reason to hop, skip, and jump around real estate agents. It's not going to get you a better price. The problem in Central America is that there is no MLS. There is no standardization of real estate sales in Central America. So it is the Wild West. Owners have it listed for one price, and then 10 other real estate agents have it on their websites at 10 other prices. And so what was happening was, again, I do my own research. It's great to have a real estate agent with contacts, but I do my own research. And so I would be researching properties and I would come across something and I might toss it or I might keep it for future reference. And my agent would bring me something and say, hey, what about this? Oh, well, I saw this already from the owner and it's $30,000 cheaper than this listing that you're showing me. And look, now I just went on to another real estate agent's price and his is $80,000 more than what you're even asking for. What's going on with this? It was confusing to me. I didn't understand the process at that point. And I kept calling them out, like every single property. I was pulling up the records for them and finding them listed in multiple places for multiple prices. And I would say, what is going on here? Eventually, I'm going to tell you, my agent, who was wonderful, by the way, he was great. I didn't have any problems with him. But there was another agent there in Costa Rica that was fairly notorious for having all these properties and marking them up substantially on his website. And when my agent would call that agent to get more information and then say, hey, my client saw it on this website for this much, he ended up getting angry and didn't even want to field any questions anymore about anything he had on his website from me because I had caught on to the game. And then he sent my agent like a scathing email about how, oh, she just doesn't understand how real estate works in the world. No, she understands and she's onto your game, and that's fine, but keep in mind, I'm not here to pay 80% more for a property than what it's listed for somewhere else. I got fed up with Costa Rica real estate. Two reasons. One, it was overpriced. The Caribbean side over there was just overpriced and I could not find anything like what I wanted. And two, just all of this crazy multiple listings everywhere for the same exact property, and listings would be expired. You would call on them, oh no, that was sold 18 years ago. Just it was a mess, and frankly I got sick of it, so I just stopped. Well, while we were in Costa Rica, a very interesting thing came across my Facebook feed. It was an advertisement for a reality show looking for homes that they wanted to renovate on this reality show, like these fixer-upper kind of shows. And they wanted homes that were built in the 1950s, 60s, or 70s and had never really been touched. Well, raise your hand if you had a home in Los Angeles that was built in 1950 and had never been touched. Right here. So I applied, and guess what? We got the reality show. And what this did was allow us to get our home fixed up very quickly at a much cheaper price than what we would have had to pay, and increase the resale value of that house by a lot, which meant we now had money to play with better to purchase property in Central America. We could now really see the path to getting to Central America soon, and not just buying real estate and sitting on it for a while, but buying and being able to then just move and start a new life without having to go through the hassle of fixing up our house in Los Angeles before we sold it. Okay, so all of that's happening. The reality show is literally in our main home in Los Angeles, fixing it all up. I will link to the reality show below. It's actually airing right around now, which is in early 2021. And so you might be able to catch an episode of it. But they're filming in our main house. We're living in our guest house. And I told Brian, I'm done with Costa Rica. I can't even wrap my head around it anymore. Let's start looking in the Bocas area again. And so the first thing I did was start looking at some of the real estate that we had considered like 5 years ago when we had been here. And shock of all shocks, a lot of it was still on the market 5 years later at drastically reduced prices. Okay, so I start looking. I don't even understand how I got hooked up with my real estate agent, Lazar and Carmen from Roots Real Estate Panama. It was through Facebook, but I don't know if I sent them a message or what happened. But Roots Real Estate Panama, I will link below, had just started. And Lazar is a guy from Belgium, and Carmen is his wife from Canada. And they've been in Panama in the Bocas del Toro area for a very long time and had just gotten into real estate. I sent a message and I said, look, here's what I'm looking for. Because again, I knew exactly what I was looking for. And I talked about this in the buyer rent video. I wanted at least 3 hectares. I wanted oceanfront. I wanted jungle. Okay. And so I sent him a message saying, hey, here's what I want. He sends me a message back. This is in like December of 2019. He sends me a message back and says, we just were in contact with an owner who is drastically reducing the price on their property. It is a little less than 5 hectares, oceanfront, and main road access. Ding, ding, ding. This really caught my attention because it hadn't really occurred to me to that point that there was property in Bocas that wasn't an island. And you will hear me say that my biggest pet peeve is when people think that because I'm from Bocas that I must live on an island, and I don't. Well, I was one of those people that are my biggest pet peeves, because I really thought that if you lived in Bocas, you lived on an island and you dealt with boat access only, and if you wanted a car, you lived on Isla Colón and you had to take a ferry back and forth. I looked at a property on Isla Colón, which was actually a property that I had considered 5 years ago. They had drastically reduced the price on it. It is a beautiful piece of property. And then I came over and I looked at the piece of property we're on now that is mainland and road access. And it just felt right. I knew at that point that if I had the option to have main road access, I wanted that. I wanted my freedom. I did not want to have to live a boat lifestyle. A lot of people like that. That's their gig. That's great. It's not for me. I feel trapped and very claustrophobic. If I want to go somewhere, I want to be able to jump in my vehicle and go. I don't want to have to plan days in advance that I have to get on the ferry, and the ferry only leaves on these days at these times, and I got to have my truck on the ferry, and then I got to get it over there, and then it's a whole thing. Okay. So this property really spoke to me. The price, exactly where we needed it to be. The condition of the property needed some help, but that's fine because literally what we were getting, we were paying, how do I say this? We were paying basically what just the land would be. So any structure was just bonus on top of that. So if it was in crappy condition, it really didn't matter that much to us. But we saw the potential here. This property has massive potential. And my little business wheels in my head started turning and churning, and I could see everything that I could do with this property and how easy it would be, and even other ways of making this property be income producing. Let me step back and say that this property does not need to be income producing for us because, again, I run an online school. I can do that from anywhere, and that is our income basically. But it's always nice to diversify income, especially in these days of COVID. So I was here. I came to see the property in January and February of 2020. I came to Bocas. I was actually doing a house sit on Isla Solarte. And so I came over here by boat, looked at the property, knew that it was going to work for what we wanted, called Brian. He was in Los Angeles. I was out here by myself. Called him, said, you got to get out here. You got to see this because I think this might be the one. Let's see. Oh, and the next step was to make sure I could get internet. That was the deal breaker. So there's a company here called Panama. I'm going to do a whole video on them eventually. And Panama specializes in getting you internet access in crazy places where you could not even imagine it. So I had them come over, get on the property, and look for a signal, because if they couldn't find a signal, I couldn't buy the property. I have to be able to work here. So they found a signal. And then that really was it. So Brian came out, looked at the property, said, yeah, I think this is exactly what we're looking for. And it was time to pull the trigger. Brian went back home. I stayed long enough to get a survey done on the property. I then hired an attorney, which was not Kramer law. And it's one of the mistakes that I made. It's where I was trying to save a couple $100, and I ended up costing myself so much frustration and aggravation and all of that stuff. I'm going to talk about the attorney experience on another video. But yeah, don't try to save and scrimp a couple $100 when you're dealing with attorneys here. I should have gone directly to Kramer, because in the end, I had to have Kramer kind of sweep up the pieces of everything. We'll get there. Okay, so I have this attorney. Well, we have my attorney, so the buyer's attorney, and then we have a seller's attorney. The seller was in Florida. And obviously the attorney for the seller was here. So two different attorneys. Got the contract drawn up. Then I had to, once we got the contract drawn up and we got everything kind of lined out, okay, I haven't decided yet. I'll probably link a copy of our contract with the important stuff marked out, so you can see it. Look in the description. If it's not there, don't ask me for it, because then I decided it's none of your business. But I'll probably link it in there. I have to go back and read it. So we have these two attorneys that we're working with. We get the contract written up. We get all of that set. And at that point, my attorney starts the title search. This property where I am is titled. There's two types of property: titled and ROP, which stands for rights of possession. In Bocas, the vast majority of property is ROP. It's not something I wanted to get into for many reasons, and that is a completely separate real estate video that we're going to do, okay? Just know for now, my property is titled, so we were able to do like a title search on it. We knew some things were owed. There was some stuff for the building out over the water, like where I'm sitting now. So there were some taxes owed on that. So all of that had to be uncovered, and we had to figure out what was owed. So by the time I actually got the property transferred in my name, it would be completely clear of all liens and fees and all of that sort of stuff. Other thing to note, this property was held in a corporation. So basically what we were doing was transferring the corporation. And I'm here to tell you right now, I don't even understand how that whole process works. But the corporation holds the property. So when you transfer the corporation, you're transferring the property. It's very different than in the United States. And I mean, I know that that's how it's done here, so I didn't really care to dig too deep into why it's done like that. But okay, that's how it's done. And had I had Kramer, I probably would have dug into that a little bit deeper, because I knew I would have gotten exactly the answers I wanted. All right, so contract is drawn up. I'm still in Panama. I had to get the contract, my signature on it, notarized. So I was in Bocas Town at that point. I went to the notary, got the contract notarized, put it in an envelope, put it on an Air Panama flight to Panama City, and then my attorney there picked it up in Panama City. And at that point, we were under contract. I put down a deposit of about 10% on the property. So they wanted a little more, but I was not comfortable doing that. What you have to understand is when you sign that first contract here, that's literally your sales contract. It's just very strange how the whole thing works here. It's just very different than the United States. So we had a 6-month escrow in place because we signed this at the end of February, and so I think we did escrow until it was the beginning of June or the beginning of July. I can't remember. I can't remember. Somewhere in there, either the beginning of June or the beginning of July, we were going to close. That was going to give me time to get back, get our home in Los Angeles on the market, get it sold, and pack up all of our stuff and be back in Panama. I was giving myself tons of time. Please, this was the end of February, beginning of March, tons of time to do that. Houses in Los Angeles in my area gone in a week with multiple offers. Not a problem. I had so much time padded in that I was planning on being down here sometime in May at the very latest. Yeah. The deposit was put on the property the first week in March when I went back to the United States, and COVID hit the second week of March. So we're going to end this video on that cliffhanger, and next time I do a real estate video, we're going to talk about how COVID affected the real estate purchase, how we finally ended up being able to close on this property, and a few other tips and tricks along the way. All right, so until next Friday, make sure you subscribe and have a wonderful week.